To episode 1 of In the Trenches with Flutter MX. I've written a lot about matrix and stuff like that, but recently I had a little task that I had to execute, and I thought it would be a perfect basis for a very short video because it was very tightly defined, precise, finite little task. And let's take a look at that. What is the task? Oh, before we get going on that, I'm going to spend a moment here to kick off. This is my work session. I'm going to start a simulator. This is GoSim, that means open -a simulator. I don't like typing. And while that's going on, I'll just come back down here and fxd all, which is Flutter MX, kick off the build, watching build, and do it for all devices, which is not true. We're actually only going to do the simulator and the desktop application, which will be sufficient for our purposes. And now, while that's going on, we can go take a look at the task I have to execute, which is I have a TodoMVC implementation, as every good GUI library does. And I left out a feature, and you'll see why. And the feature is specifically TodoMVC. If you don't know it, TodoMVC, this is their reference implementation in Angular. You know, it's got all these good things, and highlighting, and you can edit it, and if we change the focus, oops, no, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, so now I'm editing it, so bicar, change that to bicar. Oh, I don't like that. I hit escape, and so it reverts back. So yeah, that's how that works. And here's the TodoMVC page, and as you can see, this is pretty big back in the day. I don't know how long ago, maybe 10 years ago. Anyway, 50 or 60 frameworks have actually executed this bad boy. And when you execute it, if you want to get on that page, you actually have to fulfill a pretty tight application specification, including things like CSS. Well, they give you the CSS. HTML, you have to use coding style. They even get into your coding style. And then down here we have the functionality. And let's look back at here and see the functionality that I have to implement today. And that is, just to keep our interface clean, we're not going to show this little X over here until they hover that particular do item. And if none of them are hovered, nothing is highlighted. If we look over here at my version of the app, which is now fired up, thank you very much, you can see, wait a minute, look at all these X's. Why are they showing? Well, I'll explain. This is the sim. And I didn't know of any way to implement hovering on a sim. And this is all I've been working on for a year and a half. So I figured, well, I just got to show the X. I don't know how to do the hover. But now, lately, I've been playing around with the desktop version and the web version. On both of those, I could hide and show the X as things get hovered. So that is what our mission is today. And let's get on with it. First of all, the first thing we have to do is notice that over here I'm still going to have to show the X because there's no way to do a hover over here. So what do we have? We have to do platform dependency. Flutter's great. You get to write once and run on 3 different platforms: desktop, web, and sim. But as always, there's always a catch, and yeah, we got to make some adjustment for the fact what platform we're on. And so here I knocked together a bunch of functions. Is it web? That's the foundation package, has a constant which will tell me that. Is it mobile? There are a couple of, the platform package tells me if it's Android or iOS or Windows or Linux. You might be curious about, and this is a little insight into programming with Dart and Flutter, is hey, is it web? Why am I asking that? Why don't I just ask this? Well, believe it or not, you can't even access the platform package if you're running on the web. You can compile it, you can build your application, but you got to put in some smarts that says, make sure I'm not on the web before I try and access the platform package. As I say, it's a runtime error, an exception. It basically says, platform, what's that? So anyway, I've got these tools ready to go for when we implement the task and we want to make it conditional upon our platform. And now we go back to the actual to-do application. And this is what it looks like, by the way. You'll see a lot of nesting. we have a visibility widget just to control visibility, then a container, and the gesture detector. I'm just trying to do a to-do item, you know, but I'm getting used to it. I think it's a potentially powerful approach to UIs instead of having a div, which might have, you know, 5 different parameters controlling all this. We just break it up into different widgets and, I don't know, mix and match. Lego, sort of the Lego approach to doing things. So we're going to come down here and we're going to say, well, we need a new bit of state. Am I hovered or am I not hovered? So let's create that. And this is one of the things I talk about is that with the prototype model of object-oriented programming is that we can add a property to the gesture detector at will. And let's look at this a little bit here. First of all, yes, that's the gesture detector, but that's not really the function that's going to create the Flutter detector. This is a proxy wrapper that knows how to create a gesture detector. And that's handled by the internals of Flutter MX. Hovered CI, what is that? That means, oh, this is an input cell. Hovered cannot be calculated. This is decided by the user gestures. So we're going to have to do something like tracking the mouse at some point and indicate when they are hovering, when they're not hovering. This is an input from outside the matrix reactive engine. So it's an input, and we're going to start out as false. So now I've mentioned I've already handled the problem of detecting the platform. That's over here. And now let's handle the problem of how do I detect mouse over? And I can guarantee you this, you don't want to ask ChatGPT because it will make up answers. At will. I finally got the answer on Stack Overflow, good old Stack Overflow, and then was nice enough to go back to ChatGPT and say, would you like to know? And it said, sure. And so, you know, give it a try. Maybe ChatGPT has learned from our experience. But what we're going to do is wrap it in a mouse region. Mouse region is the key, not gesture detector. Gestures are for like big things like swipes or dismisses or things like that. This is just mouse region. And so what I'm going to do is just to test, I'm going to just do a little print. Hover in, and I put exclamation marks so I can see it. My eyes aren't so good. And we're going to close that off. And we now, hopefully, and we're going to have some problems along the way. I know they're here, but I want you to see them so you get a feel for what it's like programming with this system. Okay, so what have I done? I wrapped it in a mouse region. Good. On enter as Dart callback, don't worry about that. There's a lot of communication between our running application and Flutter, and some of it is at startup, and there are different functions. So what I do is I wrap them in different types so that the internals can figure out why are you passing me a function. Are you looking for the context? Are you what? So anyway, so in this case, I'm just saying this is just a Dart callback. Just take this function, let Dart know that it should call that. I hope that's not too much information. So this should be good. Let's save this and see what I've broken. And seems okay, but it's not okay. Why? Well, you see this me here? That's a lexical anaphoric variable generated by various macros. Me used to be inside the gesture detector. Now it's inside the mouse region. And we want the error is pretty nice. I tried to improve the errors. It says, hey, there's no such property, editing. And I go, right, editing is on the gesture detector, haha. Now I could ask for the parent, but I'd just be being brittle again. So we're gonna search, family search up. We do this a lot, so it gets a really short name. And we're gonna search up to the control panel, item control. And I gave it that name for the obvious reason that it's where we sort of control what's going on with this widget, and we're going to keep our state here that helps us control editing and other things. So all right, so that should work. Let's give that a go, and you'll see a little bit more about working with Dart and Flutter. Notice that the sim is okay, the desktop is not okay. This might be something that I need to fix, but hot reload did not make the desktop app happy. But if I hit enter down in the terminal, that triggers a restart. Yeah, a hot restart, and that does indeed get things working. So okay, good. So let's see. Do we have any hovering here? Hover in, hover in, hover in. Okay, so fantastic. Our mouse region is working, and as I said, I've already executed this, so the live coding won't be too painful for our viewer. Okay, so what do we got? We got the hover in, so we're good. Are we you know, well, we only did hover on enter, so we got to do this a couple more times. Now, why do I have to do it? I need to do the exit, obviously, but I'm also going to do it for there's a third option, which is on hover, and I'm worried about the possibility that we might start out already hovered. And in which case we would never get the on enter event. You love those kind of bugs. I'm going to leave the message the same way it is, so we don't need to demonstrate that. Well, actually, let's get this guy out of here, because when you're hovering, all we're going to see is hover. But let's put in the hover out, and so you can get to see this thing working. And hover in, hover out, hover in, hover out. Okay, great. So that's wonderful. Our technology is under control. Now, what do we do with a hover? Well, we've got the hovered variable. Well, let's go ahead and set that guy. So we're hovering enter. We're going to mset. Now, again, I got to use FMU. I got to search up to the item control. I don't want to use the parent because that would be brittle. What if we have to wrap another widget? And it creates another layer of parentage. I mean, don't even know my own library. Set. Good Clojure usage. Set hovered. True. Yay. And we'll copy that down to the on hover, because if I'm getting the on hover, I think I'm hovered. And whoa. Okay. What I do? Let's make sure all these parens are still cool. All right, all right. And down here we're going to say false. Yeah, we got too many parens. And we're going to say hovered is false. On exit. Okay, so again, I'm using the navigation. I think I already said this, because I don't want to be brittle by saying parent. You know, we see this gesture. We got these nested. This is the Flutter way. Very cool, potentially. I think I'm going to like it. And all right, so we're probably going to be setting. If I go over here, we're going to let it rebuild. See if I made any more goofs. Okay, I got lucky this time. Bang, bang, bang. So we're probably hovering and unhovering, but all I did was set the hovered value. This is probably going from true to false. But the only way we know that is when we come back up here and put it to work. So now we're going over to another widget, and we're going to, I'm going to steal some code down here, because you are probably getting tired of watching me struggle with typing. I'm not very good, and especially when I'm talking at the same time. And we're going to go up here, clean this up a little bit. Ooh. Zap in a little. Phrase. Okay, come down here, you know, the parens. I don't use parented. Been programming Lisp for 30 years, and I don't like fighting it. Visible. Now, here's where we get to put hovered to work. But hovered isn't a property of the delete button. It's a property of something else. So I'm going to, again, navigate, our good old buddy, FMU, search up. We're going to find that guy. And am I hovered? I'm going to think about this for a second. Am I hovered? Then I'm visible. Okay, that's correct. Okay. All right, and away we go. And whoa, look, it's all the yeah, the X's are all gone. I'm not hovered. And do they work? Yeah. Okay, so we now have satisfied the spec, except we have a problem. Over here, we're not hovered. We don't have any X's, and that's because we're mobile, and mobile doesn't have hovering, and that's why I created those earlier capabilities. So the other condition in which we're going to be visible is, are we visible? Help me here. Is mobile. I'm sorry. Is it mobile? And if it is, then voila, we're going to be visible. And with any luck, this thing will compile and run and come up here. And now we have our X's and they're visible. Let's make sure the desktop doesn't have X's until it's hovered. And boom, we have implemented the feature as required. So let's look at what's going on. Oh, by the way, the astute observer might be panicking at this point. Says, wait a minute, you're searching family up for item control. Well, if you look over here, I got 3 to-do items. There are 3 item control. There are 3 widgets named item control. How does this work? The utility, FMU, searches inside out. So it's going to start from the delete button, move up to the line item. It's going to find the correct item control. So this is kind of nice. We actually get a natural scoping. And believe me, this really works out at scale. We don't find the wrong thing by searching up and searching around ourselves. If it ever gets super interesting, because we're doing super weird navigation, and I have done things like that in the past, you get to write your own FMU. You get to write any function. We have documented how the namespace is arranged. It's a tree, and you know, every widget knows its parent, which is the important thing. Every widget knows its parent at the proxy level, so it's able to basically search the universe, which I think is a little bit frightening, but I guarantee it works out in the end. What can we, well, here's something we can do, and this is kind of beside the point, but I feel like we could actually do a DRY on this. There's a lot of noise here, so let's say we're going to do a hover true. And what is hover? We're going to do a let fn. No. Syntax of let fn drives me nuts. True or false? And now we'll close that out. Close that out. Bam. And we want to take the value TF and use that here. So now we have a function, and we'll just try it. We'll try it here once. Did I get all my parens? Well, you know what? Let's just save it and see. I'm as lazy as the next guy. Bingo. All right, so it seems to be working. Well, wait a minute. Okay, so it's all right. That's cool. Over here, you guys are, well, you're just on, and now we can just say hover true, and that's also true. And this guy is false. Isn't Clojure great? Bam. So these guys are good. They're still X's. These guys are not X's. Let's see if we get stuck. No, we don't get stuck. We have completed our exercise and even cleaned up the code a little bit. What are the points I can make in closing? So we know about the fact that when you're programming Flutter, we wrap a lot of widgets. There was an idiosyncrasy where I can't ask about the platform until I know that I'm not on the web. I'm able to create state at will, sort of like React hooks, but I don't think React hooks, I don't think you can ask about another component's hooks. I don't think it plays that way. That's where you need that, and React, you need something like Redux or MobX, which I think is a better solution. I digress. So we have this state at will right here on this property. So and you know what? It's fairly local, right? This line item is the only guy that cares about the hovered property. So why would I have to go to a separate store in the Flux architecture and create a subscription and then find out some way to trigger that subscription, trigger that value with a transaction? I don't want to do that. I just a nice little bit of local state. But I do need to reach out within the line item to find that state. So our application, the view itself, becomes our application database. A little bit scary, but and it's very granular. So you know, am I selected? Am I editing? Am I hovered? All these different things, and I trigger very granular, setting the single state point of state for a single item. That's you know, I talk about the state being granular and in place. We manage the state in place. Where's that delete item there? And up here we navigate. This is an important idea as well. This is the one thing that makes me stop and think a little bit. When I'm navigating, I worry about getting into a cycle, because you can actually use these properties to decide the population of a widget, in which case you could easily get into a cycle trying to find something to update while you're also trying to decide the population of your universe. So I try to search up to avoid that happenstance. And I think that is about it. I'll make any more notes in the comments on the video. Cheers. Thank you for your time and attention. Bye-bye.